this, what I'm going to read on, was recorded in it's Matthew, Mark, and Luke, I think. I'm going to read out of Mark 5, and it's very well known. There we go. It's where Christ quieted the storm. There was one little part in there that struck me. One little sentence. But once again, as I was reading through the event, the Lord just lays certain things out, and you have to look at, it's good to look at what happened just before and what happened just after, because obviously there's a reason why this event took place at that particular time and in that particular way. It's in Mark, like I said, 5, and starting with verse 35. Actually, it's Mark 4 in verse 35. I'm sorry. He had begun to talk to the multitudes, and I'm just going to read verse 1. And he began again to teach by the seaside, and there was gathered unto him a great multitude, so that he entered into a ship and sat in the sea, and the whole multitude was by the sea on the land. And then verse 34, he says, and he spoke to the multitude with parables. The 34, he says, but without a parable spake he not unto them. And when they were alone, when he was with his disciples, he expounded all things to his disciples. He explained one of the parables, but to his disciples he would expound and explain all things. And then there were many parables that were not put in here. These are just the parables that were recorded. And it says, verse 35, and the same day, he was in the ship the whole day. When the evening was come, he saith unto them, let us pass over unto the other side. Do you think that was just something that he was wanting to do? Because over on the other side, there were two Gadarenes, and they were in the tombs, and they were bound by the law. Now there were two of them. And when that ship landed, when this ship right here, when it landed, one of his little elect, his lamb, that he knew was right over on the other side of this lake, he said, let us pass over to the other side, because he had something that he must do. Because this is the same exact one, Christ. This is Jesus the Christ, and he declared all things from the end to the beginning, and this event right here is of no exception. He knew when he sat down in that ship to speak the parables to the multitudes, that when he was done, he needed to go to the other side, because there was a little one right over there that didn't know he was going to be there. The disciples didn't know that they were going to make a trip over there, and they didn't know why they were going to make a trip over there, but he must needs go right over there. He may land on that shore because there was a man over there who had devils in him. They were the legions. What was their name? And he was going to throw them out. And then he looked at him and said, and I've spoken on this before, go home to thy friends and tell them how great things the Lord hath done for thee and hath had compassion on thee. That's why he said, let us pass over unto the other side. He had a reason. The second he sat down in that ship. And when the disciples, had sent away the multitude, they took him even as he was in the ship. I've looked at that. The phrase that caught me, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, he was asleep on a pillow. Here was Jesus Christ, the man who created all things. He laid the span of the heavens out in the most perfect perfection that there ever was. He set every single event down to the gnat. And here he laid in a ship, asleep on a pillow. But it says they took him even as he was in the ship. He was already asleep. He had already fell asleep. That's what that meant. Now, I'm going to read this, and I'm going to leave two words out. And there were also other little ships. Do you see that? One, there were also with him other little ships. Who were they with? They were with Jesus Christ. They were part of his. And it says little ships, little flocks, little elect, little small gardens walled around, that he has his hands around them, because it says those little ships were with him. They were going to endure the same exact storm that his disciples were going to are getting ready to go through. Those same little ships, they weren't with the multitudes that the disciples sent away. Those little ships that were out there were with him. That's why it says with him. Those two little words right there mean all the difference in the world. And there were also with him other little ships. They were with their Lord and Savior. And he was right there, and he knew exactly where they were, each and every one. And there arose a great storm of wind. Now there's many symbolism in this, and you can go several paths. And the waves beat into the ship. It didn't beat upon the ship. The waves were coming into the ship. It was full. This little ship is a vessel, and we are vessels, and Christ is asleep in this vessel. And when the waves come and the wind comes, and it's coming at you, but you have to think about that. Christ is in you. He is the hope of glory. He knows exactly what's going to happen every single minute of the day. He is asleep on the pillow within each and every little lamb. He has brought brought the storm. He has brought the wind. He knows what you can bear. And He is with you. It says, that's why it says those little ships, they were with Him. He is with each and every little child of God. He brought that storm and He brought them waves, and it come into the vessel. It come into the ship. He was asleep. But this is God Himself. This is the exact same one who was with Adam and Eve in the garden. This is the exact same one. Connie mentioned the three Hebrew boys back in Daniel, men. They were bound in their clothes. And there's so many symbolisms there. And the fire was so great that when they threw them fellers into that furnace of affliction, it slew the ones that threw them in there. But Nebuchadnezzar, just for a second, he said, didn't we throw 3 in there? But lo, I see 4. Now I ask you, when was those 3 boys at their most comfort? It was not before they were thrown in there, for by faith they said, our God is able. He is able to deliver us if it's His predestinated will. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's what we said, Connie, last week. There are not 2 wills. There is one will. And when before they were thrown in, that was not their greatest comfort. Their greatest moment of comfort was when they were in the furnace and they were walking with that one that we sung about in that song number 9. At that point in time in their life, for just a moment, they had comfort and joy that we can only pray that one moment we will have. That's what happens when that vessel is being filled. That's the moment of your greatest joy. He was asleep on the pillow in the vessel. He brought that furnace of affliction. He knew exactly how many gallons of water was in there. There was no possible way that vessel was going to sink. It could not happen. But what did His disciples say? They said the exact same thing that I say 100% of the time. Don't you care that we perish? Don't you care? Ain't that what you say every single time? Don't you care? They had seen Him back here. He had healed people. He had explained the parables. He had explained things. They had seen the miracles. But yet, they say exactly what we say every single time. Daniel in the lion's den, his moment of greatest comfort was not when he was being thrown in there. It was when he was in the furnace. It's when God had reached down and closed the mouth of those lions. They were starving to death. That's what they did. That's when his greatest joy was. That's when it was happening. And that is when God is closest to you. And He's got you in that little garden and you're walled around. And we'll say every time, Lord, don't you care? Don't you see I'm about to perish? Them boys, Nebuchadnezzar, what did he say? Didn't we throw 3? But ain't there 4? And they're walking around. That fire burned with a precision. It burned to a perfect, precise depth and measurement of only the bounds that bound them, those young men. And they were walking in there and they were conversing with the same exact one that was asleep on the pillow. He was in the vessel. He was there the whole time. Their Savior was right there with them. He was in the hinder part. He humbled Himself, but He was magnificent. He lowered Himself to become the likeness of sinful flesh for His people and only His people. He said, I pray not for the world. I pray only for those that were given me. And that right there, it was those that were in the ship, and it was those that were on those little ships that were with him. It's the same Christ that brought the people out of Egypt, and he destroyed a mighty nation. It's like John said, he will have a people. He will have a witness upon this earth. It will never be destroyed. It cannot be destroyed. It's an impossibility. And that one that brought them out, that one that was fire by night, and he was a cloud by day, that one who was the rock who gave them water, he was the one that sent the manna down from heaven, the food that he was the one that Joshua said, and when he looked over and he seen Joshua seen a man standing there with the sword drawn. He said, "Who do you fight for?" He said, "I am the captain of the host." And Joshua bowed down and took his shoes off. That is the same one that's talking about right here. He was asleep on the pillow in the vessel. They were not going to sink. But yet this we will say, and we will do it every single time. He'll bring you down. He'll bring you down so that the only place that you can look is to him, and only to him, the one who was asleep on the pillow. That's the one when you get down to your lowest, and he'll bring you up, and he'll set you on the rock, for he is the foundation. He is the rock. That is the one. That is the one. And he had a reason to go over that sea, and he went over there. He wasn't worried about sinking. He wasn't worried because he had already declared the end from the beginning. He had a purpose for going across there. He was always teaching. He was always showing in some manner or fashion. He was always doing that, and in like manner right here. The same one. And he's the exact same one today. Time changes him not. It changes him. He is the same yesterday. He is the same today, and he will be the same forever. He chose his people in eternity, and you can't go back past eternity. I can't comprehend that. I can't explain it. All I know is his people were never separated from him. For eternity goes on, and I've heard John say it 1,000 times, as far as the east is from the west. It does not stop. It will not. There is no beginning, and it will continue forever. And that is the same exact one that he was asleep right here, and it is the same Christ that is in each and every little child of God, for it's Christ in you, the hope of glory. He changes not. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And there is not even a shadow of turning. There's no turning in him, but there's not even a shadow of turning. That's even more definitive than something turning. He narrowed it down even more. He said there's not even a shadow of him turning. And then he said he arose and rebuked the wind. And there's got to be something to this. And he said unto the sea, and I know there's symbolisms in the sea, in the wind. You can take that to the people, and you can do all that. But he simply said, "Peace, be still." And it happened. It was real. wind stopped and those waves stopped, and I know they made it across that sea. They made it to the other side. Nothing could have stopped them from getting to that point. Nothing whatsoever could have stopped this boat and all of these other little ships that were with him. They were going right over there because there was an appointment that he knew he would be there and that he had declared. They can say all they want to, that God is not a predestinating God, that he is not a sovereign God, but he has shown me that he is. But he has also shown me that every single time I will say, don't you care that I'm perishing? That's the conflict within. And only within a little child of God, that the elect. I went long enough, but asleep on the pillow.